Hello and welcome to the Ellen Made Book Club and this video, which is going to be about new releases in 2026. I started out very strong this year making monthly videos about new releases. So if you are looking for books that have come out this year, I will leave a link to a playlist of 8 videos that I did. But then I sort of fell off of that routine. I put a lot of work into preparing those videos and all of the graphics and everything, which I think is, a good thing to do, but I just didn't anymore for the last couple of months. But I still think that it's really fun to talk about upcoming releases, and I do have a list, just like a running list on my audiobook app with books that are coming out next year that I think sound really interesting and that I just want to talk to you about. I have just sorted these on which book comes out first out of the ones that I have saved, and I'm just gonna talk through them and see how far we get. So the first one is My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney. This is a very popular thriller author that I haven't read anything from yet, but I think that this premise sounds really good. This book comes out in January. It follows a woman called Eden. She's an artist on the brink of her big break, and she sets off for a run, but when she comes back home, nothing is as it should be. Her key doesn't fit, and a woman eerily similar to herself answers the door, and her husband insists that the stranger is his wife. I think that sounds very intriguing, like a very fun premise for a thriller. So yeah, this is one that I am looking forward to listening to. The next one is Paper Cut by Rachel Taff. I think this is a debut novel, and it's also a psychological thriller. It says it's darkly addictive with a blistering pace and puzzle box structure, and I think that sounds like a lot of fun. So this follows a woman called Lucy. She is a true crime icon, infamous for the murder she committed while escaping a California cult 20 years ago. But as anyone in Los Angeles knows, fame is fleeting, and Lucy and her story are always just one news cycle away from obscurity. Not to mention she's fending off a stalker and moderating an icy feud between her acclaimed photographer mother and her scandalous rock star sister. Worst of all, online trolls are asking increasingly threatening questions about the legendary crime, questions that could tear her life apart. Paper Cut combines psychological suspense with coming-of-age Californian cult noir and a sharp examination of the true crime phenomenon. I always find stories about cults interesting, and I also think that true crime as a phenomenon is very interesting. I watch true crime documentaries and I think they're fascinating, but I also think that the idea of true crime is not completely unproblematic. So yeah, I would enjoy reading a book about this topic. Next up, we have Holy Boy by Lee Keejoo. This is translated from the Korean by Joheun Lee, and this comes out in February. The shocking K-pop kidnap sensation. Yeosep is a K-pop idol with millions of adoring fans, but for 4 of them, a poster on the wall just won't cut it. They have a plan, a perfect, foolproof plan to get their idol all to themselves. Kidnapping Yeosep seemed like the ultimate act of love, but inside a secluded mansion plagued by paranoia and with their grip on reality slowly loosening, the women use increasingly disturbing strategies to keep Yeosep in their possession. More than a little unhinged, Holy Boy is an exhilarating descent into the dark side of devotion. So this reminds me of Idol Burning by Rin Usami, but taking it a bit further. Not a lot happens in this story, and so maybe Holy Boy will be a bit more, what Idol Burning wasn't. The next one is also a thriller called Pinky Swear by Danielle Girard, and it comes out in February as well. So this follows Lexi, who thought she knew everything about her friend Mara. They were best friends since middle school and then drifted apart after a tragedy derailed their senior year. But when Mara shows up on Lexi's doorstep 16 years later, fleeing an abusive husband, Lexi takes her in without question. Lexi's own marriage has been strained by her desire to have a baby, and when Mara offers to become her surrogate, their friendship feels stronger than ever. But 4 days before the due date, Mara disappears. I think this sounds very suspenseful and very high stakes, like your surrogate taking off with your baby inside them. Those are very high stakes, and I am also intrigued by just the friendship dynamics between these old friends, and then something made them not be friends anymore or like drift apart, and then coming back and then maybe something is not as it seems about their past. I don't know. I think it sounds really interesting and I look forward to reading that. Next up, I have a nonfiction coming out in February called Rare Tongues: The Secret Stories of Hidden Languages by Lorna, Gibb, an enthralling tour around the rarest languages in the world. Linguist and writer Lorna Gibb explores the history of these languages, the cultures they belong to, and the tales they tell. At once entertaining and informative, she makes a compelling case for the preservation of the rich linguistic diversity of our world and expertly shows why it matters for us all. I'm always interested in languages and diversity, and so this one caught my eye. I'm looking forward to giving it a try. Next up, I have The Fountain by Scieszka. This is a fantasy science fiction novel that comes out in March, and it says it's a propulsive and deeply moving novel about eternity and mortality that asks what it would mean to live forever. Vera hasn't been home in 188 years, but now, forever 26 and able to heal from any wound, Vera has returned to the Catskills. Whatever made her family immortal happened here, and if she can uncover it, maybe she can reverse it. Posing as a newly arrived forest ranger, she quickly blends into the upstate community and learns of something curious and disturbing. A mysterious, well-funded company is snapping up local property, no matter how high the asking price. But when her brother, a fellow immortal, shows up, accompanied by the woman whose face is incredibly familiar to Vera, the purpose for her return gets clouded, and Vera is in a race against time to find out what has caused her condition before someone else does. Blending the spectacular with the everyday in a tale filled with humor and warmth, The Fountain explores what gives life meaning and how our understanding of our histories shape us and cage us. Next up, I have Yesteryear by Caro Burke, which is a sort of satirical thriller, I think, which comes out in April, and I just love this cover so much. I think it's gorgeous. Natalie lives a traditional lifestyle and has the social media accounts to prove it. Her charming farmhouse on her working ranch is artfully cluttered. Her husband is a handsome cowboy. Her homemade sourdough bowls are each more beautiful than the last. So what if there are nannies and producers and industrial-grade ovens behind the scenes? What Natalie's followers don't know won't hurt them. Then one morning, Natalie wakes up in a strange, horrible version of reality. Her home, her husband, her children, they're all familiar, but something's off. Is this a hoax, a reality show, a test from God? One thing Natalie does know is that it will make one hell of an Instagram post. I think this sounds like so much fun. I love the mix of like the social media thing and the traditional lifestyle thing and like the trad wife trend. And yeah, I love a story where something's off and we don't really know what. So yeah, I have really high hopes for this one and I hope it delivers. Next, I have another psychological thriller, but I think this one also has a bit of horror and maybe science fiction aspects to it. And this is Blood Trail by Matt Query and Harrison Query. This is about a poacher turned game warden who is on the hunt for a bloodthirsty cult. Clark Rickert was once the most prolific big game poacher throughout the Rocky Mountain West. But when he lost both his son and his wife, he turned away from hunting. Now a game warden working for the very law enforcement officers that once pursued him so aggressively, Clark is overwhelmingly successful at his job. I don't know why that was so difficult to read. So when there's a string of disappearances in rural Montana, Clark is selected to join a task force on an operation targeting a mysterious violent cult in the area. As he works to uncover the truth, Clark begins to be plagued by visions and starts to realize that there is a deeper purpose to his assignment, and the cult might be up to something far more terrifying than anyone could have guessed. It sounds scary and haunting and very eerie, but I'm also very intrigued. The next one on my list is The Model Patient by Lucy Ashe, and this comes out in April, and I think it sounds very fascinating. I also love the cover and this like 60s vibe and the snake coming around her head. A taut psychological exploration of obsession, betrayal, and the dangerous relationship between a patient and therapist in 1960s London. In the quiet hush of her therapist's office, Evelyn Westbrook finds herself revealing secrets she'd prefer to keep hidden. Abandoning her successful modeling career to become a model wife for her husband, Henry, has left her days feeling empty. Her mother-in-law is pressing for a child that Evelyn doesn't want, and her nights are haunted by a recurring nightmare in which she becomes a snake devouring its own tail. As Evelyn's sessions with the enigmatic Dr. Daly unearth more questions than answers, her interest in him turns into obsession. But is her therapist finally providing the care she needs, or is she being manipulated? I love anything to do with psychology, and I find the relationship between therapist and patient very interesting, and like the power dynamics of that. This reminds me of The Strange Case of Jane O, which I read earlier this year, that I thought was fascinating up to a certain point, and then it sort of went downhill from there. But yeah, I'm very intrigued to try another one of these like patient-therapist stories, and I think this one sounds very, very good. The next one is a crime mystery thriller, and I don't know if it's like, you know, solving the case yourself. Dissection of a Murder by Joe Murray. A dead judge, a silent defendant, and a courtroom full of liars. When Layla Reynolds is handed her first murder case, she's shocked at how high profile it is. The murder of a well-respected, well-known judge. This shouldn't be the kind of case she's leading. It's way beyond her expertise. But the defendant, Jack Millman, is clear. He wants her, and only her. To make things worse, he's refusing to talk. How is she supposed to prove herself on what appears to be an unwinnable case? Suddenly, Layla finds herself fighting not only to keep Jack out of prison, but also to keep her own secrets buried. There are two sides to every story. Guilty or not guilty, you decide. This comes out in May, and I'm very interested to give it a try. I love a legal thriller, and I haven't read a lot of those, but I am very intrigued to do so. I have a couple on my shelves that I'm keen to get to, and yeah, I'm gonna just add this one to the list. The next book is called The Unravelling of Mary Reddish by David Whitfield. And this one comes out at the end of May, and it also reminds me of another book, which I will get into in a second. Nottingham, 1827. Mary Reddish, a young housemaid unjustly committed after defying her employer's advances, must navigate the brutal treatments of the county asylum while trying to prove her sanity. Meanwhile, Anne and Thomas Morris, the asylum's matron and director, struggle to uphold humane practices against outdated medical methods that haunt the institution. As Mary forms an unlikely alliance with a fellow patient, she finds herself at the center of a battle between compassion and cruelty that would determine the course of her life and the future of the asylum itself. So this one, of course, reminds me of The Darlings of the Asylum by Noel O'Reilly, which I haven't read yet, but like the premise is very similar. And they're both written by male authors, which I think is interesting. The Darlings of the Asylum has been criticized for not having the best portrayal of women, and I think that it's a very sensitive topic about, you know, women who are in a lunatic asylum. I'm looking forward to reading this one very soon, and The Unravelling of Mary Reddish next year, and just it would be fun to compare the two. I think I'm gonna stop there. I have plenty more on this list, but maybe I'll do another one of these videos. Let me know if you would like to see that. I think it's fun to do this kind of video based on my own audiobook app, because in the previous videos that I made, I just looked on Goodreads. These ones I already know that I will have access to, so that's fun. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.